You know, if there ever was something I appreciate about remote learning, it's the fact that I don't have to worry about being late. Actually, scratch that, it still happens.
Hi guys, I'm Martin. I am a 3D animation student studying here in Toronto, Canada. If you're a 2020 student like me, then you're most likely studying from home. For some, that may be an easy adjustment, but for others, probably not so much. So before I started life as a college student studying 3D animation, I actually already graduated from university. That took 4 years, and afterwards, I became a missionary for the next 2 years. Yeah. 2 years. I was a missionary for 2 years. So I traveled a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot. I would spend good chunks of my week doing office work. Normal 9 to 5. Normal? We're not normal. Being a missionary is not normal. Anyway, the office in my case, where it was not a physical office building because of just the reality of what I was doing. My office would be whatever cafe I could find myself in, park, library, but oftentimes it would be my room, and my room would be whatever house I'd happen to be in for that week. You know, Zoom was my best friend for those 2 years. That was listening to talks, lectures, giving workshops myself, having one-to-one conversations, having conference calls that could be as short as 15 minutes or as long as, believe it or not, 8 hours. Those were especially when we got really busy. We had to plan for something. So that's why they would last that long. So school's been going on for a few weeks now, and I got to hear from a few friends, from a few peers, colleagues of mine, and how they've been doing with this new world of remote learning. Actually, for most of them, they've been struggling a lot to keep concentrated, struggling a lot to keep motivated. And I'm all the more fortunate enough to have had the sufficient experience to adapt, I guess, to this new reality, because this is how I live. So given my background, I'll try my best to answer the question of how does one stay motivated as an online student. I'll answer it with 3 points. All right, so first point, and this might be simple, but you need to ask yourself, what do you want out of school? I'm not sure if we've ever taken the time to vocalize that, but this isn't even necessarily confined to taking school online. It can be with anything, actually. But school, most of us don't really take the time to ask this question, and I think it's because we didn't really have to ask it growing up, or at least I didn't. Asking myself what I wanted from school wasn't something that was pressed upon me from my first day in kindergarten all the way to, my last day of high school. All I knew was that I had to go to school and do my best. Some of us may say that what we want out of school is to get ourselves further in life, which is true. It's a means to an end. School is really a means to an end. School exists to prepare us as productive members of a working society. I think we should be more specific with what we actually want to get out of our experience as students. I'm learning 3D animation. I know nothing. And I think that's why I also wanted to document the process of me coming in from zero to hopefully to make something out of it. I'm exposed to being trained in understanding the process of animation work. When I'm in my core animation classes, by the end of the semester, I want to be able to confidently animate life into a character. Like that's my goal. That's what I come into every single class, no matter what assignment, no matter what we're learning. In my mind, all I know is that everything that I'm learning now is building towards that goal. We have this larger goal, but that larger goal is defined by smaller macro goals, your daily goals, your daily tasks when you attend a class. Our first class was learning how to animate a bouncing ball. It's really simple, but that's a macro goal that I'm very much aware of. Will build up to what I eventually want to be doing, and that's exactly how we should be thinking about our day-to-day tasks. This is exactly why our teachers give us addendums or course outlines, because they define the objectives. And to have what we do be grounded on those objectives, we're already able to meet halfway with our instructors, with our professors, especially with classes that sometimes we have challenges with. As long as in the back of our minds, we have an idea, an awareness of what we want to be able to accomplish or what this class wants to accomplish for us, then the whole process just becomes much more digestible. That's the first point. Know your goal. Like, what do you want? What do you want out of school? Now, the second point is asking yourself, what is your plan? Now that you defined your want, you've already set your goal, you've set your target, or to put it another way, you've defined your mission. How do you go about it? How do you go about accomplishing the mission you've set out for yourself? So I have a confession to make. I'm not really proud of it, but I am a serial procrastinator. It's a habit that I grew into rather than naturally having it. I believe procrastination is something that we kind of just latch on. When I was in elementary school, I remember being such a keener to get work done. And that is in part of me knowing that I have to do good. But in high school, I came in with this air of teenage pessimism that I started to let my guard down when it came to forming solid study habits. We tend to procrastinate not because we're lazy or we're lacking motivation, but actually it comes down to us being afraid of failure. It's this crippling fear to do something because maybe you won't do so well. I can't take credit for that. I learned that from an artist and YouTuber. His name's Adam Duff, Lucid Pixel. I'll put his link down below, and I highly recommend that you give it a listen. He's speaking from the perspective of an artist, but I think it covers all disciplines. We tend to procrastinate, or we tend to feel unmotivated because we feel sometimes, oh, maybe this is too hard, my class is too hard. There's a lot of us that accomplish things that are difficult. I'm a gamer, and being able to devote a lot of time to play a game and get good at it is actually a very difficult skill to accomplish. But a lot of us tend to run to that not because it's easy, but in fact because we're convinced that we can do it. For a game, it's easier to accomplish things because everything's laid out for you. But with school, it tends to become more of a challenge where there is a fear of not doing so well. And that becomes a reason for us to stress. That becomes a reason for us to overthink. I've always wanted to start a YouTube channel. And in fact, this YouTube account was opened in 2007. That's 2 years after YouTube started. I would record videos. I would learn how to edit. When I was a missionary, I took a lot of footage when I would be traveling to different countries and different places, hoping that I could vlog it. But I realized that despite all of my wants, I actually never wrote down a plan, and therefore I was afraid of failing. But it's because I never had a plan to begin with. You can buy the most aesthetic piece of IKEA furniture, but at the end of the day, you still have to look at the manual. You still have to read it. You still have to build it. Right? You need to follow the plan, because if not, then you're just going to have this thing. It's nothing without the plan. So there's thankfully a ton of resources that can help us stage a plan. I use an app called Notion to keep track of my schedule, keep track of my assignments. I love Google Calendars. I love making things by the hour. Get used to this now. Get used to having this level of discipline, because once you're working, or once you've even reached your dream career, even if you're self-employed, you still need a level of discipline. And you can't cheat. You can't cheat discipline. So that's just my way of thinking, right? So we need to come up with a plan. If you feel lost, if you feel unmotivated, then most likely it's because you don't have a plan. Make that plan. And third point is a bit more abstract, but I think this is one of the most, if not the most important tip out of all this entire video. I don't know why I put it last and if it's the most important. Anyway, it builds up from the two. Okay, so the third point is to ask yourself, what is your purpose? Having a purpose means you're less likely to give up. I have a lot of friends in medicine, and when I get to ask them why they decided to pursue that field, most of them don't really say it's because I love learning medicine. It often goes into a personal reason. They love helping people. Some of them will tell a story about getting sick or having a family member who was sick, and a doctor or a nurse took care of them and inspired them so much that, I want to be the same for others. That sometimes is all the motivation we need to keep going. And the rest is just hard work and discipline. It's a very important question to ask, but you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? What is my story? How is this personal to me? I grew up with the influence of my dad, who worked in animation. He worked in several projects with Disney Television as a background artist. And eventually, because of hard work, he became a background supervisor, and that meant he was now leading all of the background artists. He would always take me to the studio, and I got to see the artists at work. I was like 7, 8 years old. And I remember the smell of paint, gouache paint. I remember hearing vocal lines from the voice actors, and the artists would have to repeat them because they had to keep track of what they were working on. I remember the light box. Stacks of animation cells would be mounted on there, and I could see the characters being painted. I could see the characters moving, Mickey Mouse moving, man. Like, as an 8-year-old, that blew my mind. You know, my dad passed away in 2015, and that came with its own personal realizations, but one of those realizations being something about legacy. What do we leave behind? Sometime earlier in the year, I went in for a job interview at a game studio. Spoiler alert, I didn't get the job. But the art director was interviewing, and we got into a conversation about our art backgrounds and what got us here in the first place. And I talked about my dad, and he asked, oh, what projects was he working on? I listed them down, and as I did, his eyes started getting big. He says, you know, that's crazy, because those were the shows that I was watching growing up that convinced me that I wanted to work in art. I remember that because, you know, for one, it made me appreciate the work of my dad and all the other animators or people that work in animation. But also for myself, I think it gave me a sense of purpose in why I wanted to pursue animation or why I wanted to pursue art. I want to inspire the next generation of doctors, of lawyers, of politicians, of nurses, of firefighters, of chefs, whatever it may be. Anyone that has eyes to see, has an ear to listen. I want to inspire a next generation of storytellers, just like all the other animators that have come before me. You may be exhausted from your lectures. You may be distracted from keeping focus from your assignments. You may be dejected with whether or not, am I in the right program? Is this for me? But just like everyone else on the same boat as you, those are hurdles you have to overcome because you know the bigger picture. You know what you're doing this for. So I hope at some point, whenever you feel lost, you can remember where you started, and the rest will just follow, right? Know your story, know your reason, know the reason why you're doing this. Give yourself that reminder. So those are my 3 tips to staying motivated. YouTube can be a gift because there's so much content to give us encouragement. Even if you're procrastinating by watching videos on how to be productive, that can also be a trap, but it's better than most things we can procrastinate on. So 3 points. What do you want out of school? What is your plan? What is your purpose? So did you find this video helpful? Did it give you a different perspective? Or did it just remind you of things you already knew? Did it refresh your eyes to much more of what you're doing now and got you to reframe about your posture of learning, especially at a time like this? Share about it. If you have any tips or your own, please comment below. If you feel that someone can benefit from hearing this, give them the link. And if you felt that the time you spent watching me ramble on about motivation got you just even a bit more intentional with approaching school, hit like, please subscribe to the channel, because I hope I can help you out with the content I'm excited to share. So with that, thanks for staying till the end. You'll see me next time. This is Martin, and may you hustle well.